Welcome to the Gem Series, powered by Rocket Level. On this podcast, we empower entrepreneurs to succeed by setting big goals, executing like a pro, and having a fearless mindset. The Gem Series is all about investing in yourself. We're here to share the path to getting what you want out of life by sharing the stories of entrepreneurs who have done this themselves, providing thorough research from our team on what careers and habits are yielding the best results, and discussing the mindset it takes to overcome the obstacles that all future entrepreneurs will face. Investing in yourself starts with putting in the work every single day, and this podcast is here to help you do exactly that. My name is Blake Chapman. I'm the Vice President of the Ambassador Program here at Rocket Level, and I am thrilled to be your host for the Gem Series. All right, everybody. On today's episode of the Gem Series, I have Robin Goldberg here. Robin came from a marketing background and has now transitioned into nutrition and wellness and, send people up to make sure that they feel great every single day. Hey, Robin, how are you doing?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm so glad you're on here. I know we have some mutual friends, and they told me so many good things about you. I was so excited to get to chat a little bit more. So, Robin, could you share a little bit about yourself with our audience so that they can learn a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So my name is Robin. It's Robin Simon now. I recently got married.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
actually got married 3 weeks ago. So.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations to you too.
Yeah.
Like 3 months. So we're right near each other.
Cool.
So haven't changed the business name. So Robin Goldberg still works.
Great.
So I basically was doing experiential marketing. And then I also went into sort of media, but all in the marketing realm for almost 10 years. But I'd always had a strong passion for fitness and nutrition. I used to teach kickboxing classes. And I just always have found like health and wellness and nutrition super interesting. For me, it was a hobby, just an interest. And then after getting sort of burnt out from marketing, I decided to follow my passion and I started my own nutrition business.
That is so cool. Especially now, I feel like so many people are in a similar position where everybody has passions or hobbies, and they've been long exhausted by the kind of 9 to 5 that maybe isn't exactly what they're wanting to do. I think there's probably a lot of people that would resonate with that journey that you went on. In terms of like getting into nutrition, where did it all kind of start for you?
That's interesting. Like the interest of it, I think just sort of came naturally. In experiential marketing, there was a ton of travel. You were like working, it's not the typical, it is the typical 9 to 5, but then you add on all the events you go to. So experiential marketing is event marketing. So we're planning these massive corporate and sponsorship events for companies. And so you're doing your planning the regular 9 to 5, and then you're traveling in nights and weekends, to go to the events and set up the events. So trying to like really stay healthy and, eat right and work out during like that kind of crazy schedule was something that I really started to really get into. So I was like, it's so easy to fall into like, I'm too busy to think about food. So I'm just going to grab whatever the most convenient thing is. I'm too busy to work out. I'm too busy to do any of this stuff. So I'm just going to, not work out. I'm just going to grab something quick and easy on the road. And so I sort of was like, I can't do that. Like, it's just not good for me. It doesn't make me feel good. So I really started getting a lot more into finding out about it and just, starting cooking a lot more and finding ways of things to like I can travel with. And then I found that like so many of my fellow colleagues would be so interested. And so then they would start asking me stuff. And I just started finding that like I just love those conversations so much. And so I just sort of like really continued to grow my interest, just to learning more about nutrition and then talking to people about it. And there was something about like spreading that information and knowledge that like, when you saw someone else light up with the information, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that like, wow, that was so groundbreaking. And you're like, oh my God, I just imparted knowledge. You just like, just made you feel good. And so that's sort
Absolutely.
of like really how it flowed. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy too how magnetic passion is, I found. Whenever you can really I don't know, whenever somebody, I think that's probably the most exciting conversations is when somebody's just like fully almost just like in the heavens, just feeling excited, talking about something that gets other people so excited too, I feel like. So I don't know, that's really cool. So you started noticing that, these conversations were happening organically, and that sort of started motivating you to want to, you're like, oh, maybe I will sort of check this out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mean, I really I for a long time I loved marketing, but that grind just became just too much. And
Hmm.
it was just like the traveling, the stress, and I also got to a point where I don't know what sparked it, but I really wanted to sort of do something where I felt good about, where I felt like I was making a positive impact. And I felt that more from the conversations with people about like giving them some sort of tip about nutrition than I felt
Hmm.
about creating these massive events for a brand.
Yeah.
And I sort of
Yeah.
got to where I was like really burnt out. I was very unhappy in marketing at this time. Like I just was like not being fulfilled by it. It wasn't challenging anymore. And I didn't feel like I was like, making a positive impact.
Hmm.
Um, and so that was definitely when I was like, okay, I think it's time to do something different. And, after a lot of thought and a lot of, conversation, I was like, what is something that does, spark me? And then what does make me feel like I'm helping other people that I can
Yeah.
get excited about? And that was like, it's the wellness. Like that just like,
Hmm.
and what's so funny about it is that like I would find like little tips and tricks that I would tell people about that I thought were just like everyone just knew those. And to find
Yeah.
that like, oh wait, everyone doesn't just know those. I do because
No.
I have had a passion for it and I look for that information. And so finding like, oh, okay, these are the things that people really need to know that they don't know because they don't have this like obsession about it or this passion about it that I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And growing up, was this something, so this was something it sounds like maybe you found a little bit later. Like growing up, was that something that was a big emphasis around your family or
No. So like food, we always loved food, but like the nutrition aspect of it, definitely not something we grew up in. And I always tell people that I joke like when I went to college, like that's when when you're on your own, you're trying to figure this stuff out, and
yeah.
you're thinking like, oh my god, I'm being so healthy. I'm eating a salad every single day. And I'm like, but why am I gaining weight? Well, I'm dousing in a ranch dressing. And no idea. I'm like, but it's a salad, like no
Yeah.
idea that like, okay, but ranch dressing, I should just eating a burger and it'd be better for me. And
Yeah,
so it was like all
exactly.
of that like slow information that I started to pick up on and learn, like definitely didn't have it growing up. And that was also sort of where I felt that like, trying to help people that younger age also, like as you're kind of going into the college age when a lot of the stuff really starts to come effect and a lot of the fad diets start to come into effect and people's misinformation about food and nutrition. Because I realized I definitely growing up did not have that information. It was so
Hmm.
much of this stuff was
No.
so eye opening to me when I started really getting into it, sort of post college
Yeah. And so you went to college in Phoenix, is that right?
in
And then
Tucson.
Tucson, excuse me. Tucson. And so were you Arizona native, or did you move out there, or because you're
No,
in,
I'm
I think
actually
you're in.
from Alabama.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
I'm all
Very
over the
cool.
place. Yeah. I'm from Alabama, from Birmingham. My brother actually went to school in Arizona. So that's sort of how I got interested in it, went out to visit. I actually was deciding between a school in Boston and Arizona, and I went to go visit Boston. And I'm from Alabama. So, like, this is weather is, we do warm weather. So I went to go visit Boston in April and it started to snow. And
Oh,
I was
it's
like,
brutal.
nope, turn around. Nope, nope, not doing it. Can't do that.
Yeah.
And now I live in Chicago. So,
Well, oh my gosh. So you're like really okay. So you had to really change your mind around that
yeah.
stuff. Now I'm sure you're getting blasted with the wind.
Oh, yeah.
um, so whenever you went to school over there in Tucson, and you got your degree, or, was that kind of the vision? Was you're like, okay, I'm gonna go into marketing, and that's gonna be my thing. I'm gonna tunnel down, or what was life looking like around then?
Yeah, so in college, I don't think I like totally knew what I wanted to do. I thought I always wanted to do advertising.
Hmm.
Arizona didn't have the best advertising program, so I did media arts and business. And so I sort of just left, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do when I graduated.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a job at Bain Consulting and doing their graphics. And which was a skill I always had. I was definitely doing media arts. You learn how to do a lot of graphic stuff, but I really gained a ton of knowledge on how to create presentations and make them, beautiful and perfect and all the alignment and everything. But that was not my passion either. I didn't love it. And I was debating like what I wanted to do. I was like, I always wanted to do like that advertising marketing side, but I also really want to plan events. I think that's so fun
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. So I just start Googling like, I don't know, like marketing events. And all of a sudden I came across this company that was like event marketing. And I was like, no way, that's a real
Yeah.
thing. You can do both
Yeah.
of them together. And I was like, like mind blown. I was like, I had no idea you could
Mm-hmm.
do event marketing. So I reached
Yeah.
out to this company and like had no experience, nothing. And I was like 3 years into working. So it wasn't like fresh out of college. And I wanted this company so badly that I was like, I will intern. I was like, I will intern to get the experience. I just want to be here. This company is exactly what I've been looking for. And so they were like, well, these internships, they're like college kids trying to do it for credit. I was like, I don't care. I want the experience. And then hopefully it turns into a job. So I convinced them to hire me and as an intern. And then 2 weeks into my internship, they ended up offering me a job.
Wow. Yeah. Something I'm kind of picking up on a couple. I mean, I'm always like I pick little things out of the conversation and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It seems like you're a very knowledge hungry person and a very curious person. I don't know, because anytime I talk to people that have they want to get into something, they're like, look, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's an unpaid internship. I don't care what it is. I'll do what it takes to get to that next level. Cause I don't know. What do you think motivates you typically to do that kind of, go down those rabbit holes, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely the knowledge, like for sure. I'm a big, if I want to know something, I'm researching, and which isn't always the best thing. Google is sometimes your good friend and sometimes not. But
Yeah.
I think like it was something, I think it was passion. Like at the time, like I was like, this is exactly what I want. This combines the two things that I couldn't decide which route to go together into one, and I just was so determined. And I think that passion, determination of like going after something you really want, I think really just was like, I'll do whatever it takes. Just get me there.
Wow. That's really cool. It's your execution is next level because I guess fast forwarding a few years, you did this for gosh, you got a decade of marketing experience under your belt, right? And then a lot of people might just, even if they were burnt out, probably a lot of people will just be burnt out until hopefully they can retire. What kind of led up to the execution of wanting to make the switch officially
Yeah.
into what you're doing now?
It was definitely scary. Like it was exactly as you say, like 10 years of doing in a career, and I built my way up. Like I was about to be promoted to a VP. Like
Mm,
I had definitely, gotten far in that career, but I was so unhappy. And I think I just hit a point when I was like, I can't keep going on like this. Like this is
yeah.
just, I'm so miserable. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, and it was scary to be like, should I just stick it out? And I think for about 3 years, I was like, let me just stick it out. And
Hmm.
that had gotten to a point where I was like, I just can't stick it out anymore. Like, I'm not happy if this isn't worth it. And, I started, talking to some different people just about like, well, maybe I can find something different in marketing or something different in events. But
Hmm.
nothing, even the idea of that, like, didn't make me happy. And
Yeah.
so I went and talked to someone, and she was like, well, what is something that makes you happy? What do you get excited talking about? And I was like, wellness, food, nutrition, working out. Like, I light up when those conversations come around.
Hmm.
And she was like, so why not do that? And I was like, you mean start from scratch? Like, start over after 10 years in marketing? And
Yeah.
she was like, what do you have to lose? And I was like, I guess that's a good point. So I was
Yeah. At
like,
that point, I mean, yeah.
I was like, you know what? I think the thing that sort of made me sort of a safety net was like, I set myself a timeline. I was like, look, I'm going to give this 6 months. And if 6 months, I just feel like this is not what I continue to be passionate about, if this is just a hobby, if this is just, if this isn't right, I can always go back to marketing. 6 months break is not going to be the thing that the company's like, oh God, we don't want her. She took 6 months off. Like, that was my safety net knowing I can always go back. I can always find another job in marketing or events or advertising or something in that field, but why why not give this a try? I have nothing to lose but a little bit of time, which again, not a big deal in the grand scheme of life. And so I think knowing that like this was a leap, but there was a safety net underneath that I could always go back to marketing, I think sort of made me feel like a little bit more confident in like, let's just give it a try. Let's do it.
Yeah. What was the feeling like whenever you know, talked it over with the people that you're like, hey, this is what I'm going to do? Like, yeah. What were you feeling like in that moment?
I mean, I was nervous. I was honestly nervous to, like, tell people that I was doing because I thought everyone was gonna think I was crazy. Like, "What are you talking about? You're,
Hmm.
this great position in marketing. You spent 10 years doing that. Are you insane?" But honestly, every single person I told that I was gonna do it, their response was, "It's about time. I have been waiting for you to go into wellness. I've been waiting for you to go into nutrition. Like, it is about damn time." And I was like, "Oh my god, I had no idea that everybody felt this way about me." It was like
Yeah.
it was sort of like the reassurance, like, okay, this is definitely the right decision. Not that I needed the outside, but it definitely helps when it's something that's so scary and such a big leap to have that support is definitely helpful.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I mean that support is so well, it's affirming one, but then it also just it's so it's such a I don't know, it's just so nice to see how many people will come out and sing your praises and say, "Look, this is this thing that like it's like a thing that you didn't even know about yourself that radiates out of you that other people are recognizing." And it's really special to feel like other people uh are like, hey, I've known this, you know, like this is something that you
Mhm.
should have been doing. Yeah, it's
Yes.
very cool.
Yeah.
What was you know, and I know that it's never an easy road. So what were some of the hardest parts about making that transition for you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot because I look, my dad had started his own business, so I knew a little bit about entrepreneurship, but he did it 40 years ago. So the
Mm,
initial
yeah,
stages of it are very different. So
sure.
I think a lot of it was like just where you begin. And so I started out by being okay, well, I need to now make this official. So I need to go get a nutrition, certification. So I was like, before I can say I want to be a business, I know I need to have some sort of verification that anyone is going to trust me.
Hmm.
So I started out by doing a nutrition certification. And for me, also, that was like the first step. I was like, if I don't like this coursework, then obviously this isn't the right path for me.
Yeah.
And I found that like I loved it. I ate it up. I went through a program that is supposed to take 8 months in 2 months because I was just like so in it. And then
That's so
yeah,
cool.
that was, like, the other reassurance. I was like, "Oh my god." I was like, "This is just" I just found it so interesting, which I knew I
Yeah.
enjoyed, but, like, never to that level until you really just, like then that's your only focus. So, like, that was also like, "Okay, this is definitely the right thing for me." And then it was, I had to learn how to create a website and the marketing stuff. I think there were I had a lot of learnings, which is, like, wanting things to happen so quickly, you start trusting some of the wrong people. So I
Mm,
signed,
yeah.
would sign up with someone who, claimed they could get me like top on Google search. Well,
Hmm.
that was a scam. And I learned that like it doesn't happen that way. It has to be more organic. And,
Hmm.
there's a lot of like little learnings like that doing this on my own, which is also super scary, not having, someone to bounce ideas off with or run things by or read over all of your, um, blogs and your websites and everything like that. I did end up reaching out to a business coach to sort of help the process. Like, okay, so do I need to set up an LLC? How do I do that? I need to,
Yeah.
how do I start a website? What program do I use? And that was helpful for me, not only learning that steps, but she sort of pushed it because I was working on my website for months. I'm such a perfectionist that I was like, would read over every sentence 400 times and I would change here and change here and change here. And she was like, stop. You can continually change your website forever. She was like, but
Hmm.
launch it. Launch it now, launch it. And I was like, but it's
Yes.
not perfect.
Yes.
And she was like, it doesn't matter. It's never going to be perfect. It's going to be constantly changing. You're going to constantly be adding and rewriting and reworking and rebranding. Launch it. And that was like when she said that and I hit the button, it was like, this is happening. This I just
Yeah.
did it.
I think that's such good advice. That's funny. That's like I mean, that's a sales thing too, right? Where they're like, it's better to send an okay email than send no email at all, right?
True. Yes, it's
And
so true.
yeah, because otherwise you can sit and stew on these things forever. But no, I think that's such a wise decision whenever you're getting started to dive into that. So you found this really great business coach, and it sounds like this person helped you navigate some of the things where you're like, this isn't explicitly nutrition and wellness based stuff. This is just like starting a business stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had a background. And so your dad was, so you grew up, so you had a little bit of like an entrepreneur, you saw what an entrepreneurial spirit looked like growing up. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my dad started his own business 40 years ago. He does security systems, like closed circuit TV and access control. The business has grown where they now have an office in Atlanta as well. And so I think that, I'd always watched him, in the like running things and making decisions and, being the boss. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that sort of was like, I didn't understand all the ins and outs of the security systems, and I still don't. But I think growing up and seeing him be the boss and make decisions and people coming to him, and also honestly, one of the big things that I loved, was great for a parent, for a kid with their parent, but also like now I think we all appreciate is like the flexibility. He could come on vacations with us and he would still work remotely and he would take calls, but like it was nice that he could be around when we needed him to be around. And I think that was
Yeah.
also something that I always really like loved about my dad was that like even though he's this business owner and big head honcho and owns his own company, he could always be there because he ran the business. It was his business, so he'd come on
Yeah.
vacation and keep
Yeah.
working. And that, which is also now I think people have realized too after COVID. But there was definitely a lot that I picked up from him just watching him sort of manage a whole company.
Absolutely. I mean, I love the work-life balance aspect of it too, right? That's probably, I don't know. I think that's a good standard to set, is being available, especially if you have a family, supporting your family in that way and trying to be there. Because what kind of life is that to to grind away and never, yeah,
Oh
see any
yeah,
of your loved ones.
totally. And I think that was part of the reason why, you know, leaving marketing, I didn't just want to just go into like a wellness company or a nutrition company. Like I think that
Hmm.
was part of one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own. I
Yeah.
wanted to have that balance. I think that was part of being the burnt out for marketing was you don't really get a lot of that by working nights and weekends and being like on demand, on call to a client at any hour of any day. I think I was like, I want to do this on my own. I want to be my own boss. I want to have the work life balance because I think as we do get older, we start to realize the importance of life as well. And I think that that was also a big motivating factor of me opening my own business instead of going to somewhere else.
Yeah, no, that's that was that was something I was curious about, and is because it is something that would have been an option, of course, but starting your own thing, it just comes with everything else, and it's a really hard thing to do as well. But I mean, it's just like this, the payoff just seems so significant, to me that I'm like, yeah, it makes so much sense to dive into that. Has there, with that, has there ever been a time where you're like, oh my gosh, I want to quit this, or where you got freaked out or anything like that?
Yeah, a ton. That's a lot. I mean, I would say the biggest time was COVID, and I know that's true for a lot of people. But that was like when COVID just first started. I was like just getting into the groove. Like my business had been open
Hmm.
for a year. I was really starting to pick up on getting more clients. I was getting a lot of corporate talks, so I was doing a ton of presentations at businesses, and they were just starting to ramp up. And then COVID comes and shuts everything down, and clearly you're not doing, corporate presentations anymore. A lot of clients are like, not sure about the future of their own businesses, so they can't really afford, I think some people would consider it like an extra expense, even though I think learning about nutrition and wellness is actually should be a primary expense. But I do know during these
Hmm.
times, like, so a lot of people weren't able, had to back out because they weren't sure where their money was going to go. So like at that point, like I was like, well, shit, like what am I gonna do now? I had just
Yeah.
finally like
Yeah.
hit a good groove. I was just getting into things. I was doing a lot of events at different gyms and getting my name out there, and then everything came crashing down. And that was a really difficult time where I was like, okay, I need to pivot. I got to do something else
Mm-hmm.
or figure out a way to turn this so that I can still help people, but it's from home. And so during that time, I had a client who had reached out to me and she said, she's having a difficult time getting her toddler to eat vegetables. And she was wondering if I could help her and if I could come up with some recipes, to get him to eat vegetables. So I asked what her kids' favorite foods were, and I basically came up with recipes, all with like hidden vegetables in them. So she was like, he loves fish sticks. So I was like, okay, I came up with like a cauliflower crusted fish sticks. He loves muffins. He'll only eat chocolate chip muffins. So I was like, okay, we're gonna do spinach in our chocolate chip muffins. And I just kept
So
sending her
cool.
every week. She would send me new things that he liked, and I would, you know, butternut squash mac and cheese, and like different things. I was
Mm-hmm.
hiding a vegetable in his favorite foods, and she was loving it. Her kid was eating everything, and I was like, at that point in COVID when things were dying down, I was like, wait, like she's loving these recipes. Her kid is now finally eating vegetables. I was like, everyone is at home cooking. Probably
Mm-hmm.
everybody needs these recipes now. So that's when I
Absolutely.
was like pivoted and I was like, you know what? I was like, I think this could actually be really helpful for people. People are now becoming their own cooks and chefs, and everyone has to do everything for themselves now. So I spent like 3 months and I busted out a cookbook. I was like, this I think will be really helpful. I think everybody needs this right now. There's so many picky kids and just families. This wasn't at the beginning, I was like for kids, and I was like, you know what? This is for adults too. There are plenty of adults that don't eat their vegetables.
Totally.
Um,
Totally.
so I sort of took a pivot and decided to make a cookbook. And that was again like start doing something I had no idea how to do. And I designed it myself. I photographed it myself. I created every recipe myself. I Googled and researched like printers and how to publish it and all of these things. And so I made a cookbook and it was great. It was really successful. I hosted a couple of like virtual cooking classes for parents, and then a couple of like nutrition cooking classes for parents to sort of combine it all together. So that was sort of how I pivoted through like a really difficult time when I was almost like, okay, this is coming crashing down and I should give
That sounds really delicious too. I'm like chocolate
up.
chip muffins with a little spinach in it. I think I can totally get behind that.
I was gonna say I have like some of my friends who don't have kids and they bought the cookbook and I have these like chocolate donuts with zucchini in them and they're like I make them every week. They're so good.
Yeah, I'm like, I know that over my wife. I have to get used to saying that because she's my
Same. Yeah.
um, but she showed me these like avocado brownies or black bean brownies and things like that, and yeah, I'm like they're so good.
Yeah.
And no, I am totally gonna go get a copy of your cookbook after this and start trying a couple of things out. That sounds really amazing. But what
Awesome.
I love that you pivoted. I think that's like the mark of a really great entrepreneur is sometimes when you're backed into a corner, I don't know, it's like this weird thing for me sometimes where I'm like, when I get stuck in something, I love it because it almost means that I'm going to have to be forced to be my most like functionally creative,
Mhm.
and accommodate, whatever my customer might be or something like that. And a lot of really special things come out of that. And it sounds like that happened exactly for you. So how you've been doing the cookbooks for how long now?
Yeah, so I did my first one, I think I launched in 2020, and then I did a second one because that one was such good success, and I had a lot of people provide feedback, and they're like, what would be really helpful would be snacks. I need snacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all
Yeah.
right, cookbook number two. And so then I spent a while coming up with the next cookbook, and then last year launched that one. Um, and really like doing this and not only like just pivoted by coming up with these cookbooks, but really to focus on my whole business because I think at the beginning I wanted to be everything for everyone. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
help anybody who needed nutrition advice. I don't care what
Sure.
age or what, anything. And I sort of like cast my net too wide. And it's very hard to focus and like really get people and really get your business to be known when it's just so spread out.
Yep.
And I kept saying like reaching kids was what I wanted to do was because I feel like you start young and you get kids involved in food and get them excited about that, get them in the kitchen, get them cooking, get them understanding different foods, I think you really help them for the rest of their life. And so I really felt like starting at that age was really how we could help out, for the future. And
Yeah.
I just didn't really know how to get into it. I started with like doing classes for parents and then doing the cookbook. And it's really sort of helped me focus a lot more that I've teamed up with this nonprofit and I've started teaching after school cooking programs at the
Are you
public schools.
serious?
Yeah,
That's
so which
so
has been
cool.
incredible. Yeah, we started it this year and it took off. Like she was like, "Do you want to just try it out?" And come do one class, and then one class turned into like 7 schools want the program. And then some of them have added into the curriculum during the school day, so it's not just after school.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really cool how I sort of started 3 years ago to really how it's kind of pivoted and started to focus in, and really how it's like changed from just
Hmm.
doing these like one-on-ones and a lot of stuff at gyms and really focusing on like the fitness combination and sort of the people in their 30s and 40s to
Hmm.
focusing in on kids and teaching them how to cook and teaching them about food. It just when I was in it, many times I would be in tears at the end of the day, but now being able to sort of like see
Yeah.
it's really cool.
That is so cool. And I think that at least, sometimes when I think of wellness, I think of, it's something that is long term and something that it's lessons that you pass on to other people so that they can, practice them daily and have sort of a rule book to work off of, not even like to be rigid, but just something to be like, hey, this is just a guide of like facts about what happens when you when you
Yeah.
make certain choices in life. No, that's so cool. So now you've got so many different, irons in the fire. You're doing so many cool things. At the beginning, what was I guess I'd be curious, what was your initial goal with this? Like, did you have a clear first goal? And then what's kind of one of your goals now?
Um, I didn't really have a clear first goal, which was part of the problem in how I like sort of couldn't really focus in because I think I sort of was just like, I'm gonna try it and let's get our certification. All right, let's open
Yeah.
a business. All right, like let's start to try to talk to people. I really was just like I wanted a successful business. I wanted to teach people about nutrition. And I guess the larger goal was I wanted to get rid of diet culture. I wanted to get rid of the fad
Hmm.
diets. I wanted
Totally.
people to just understand food and why we need food and how it works for you. And I just wanted to get rid of like nothing gets me more fired up than trying to talk to somebody about like why they do not need to be doing keto or intermittent fasting. And so that was my initial, like, I just wanna, like, tell everyone to stop. And which is a kind of broad goal, and
Yeah.
so I didn't know how I was really
Well,
gonna get there.
no,
Um,
I think that no, it's funny though, because like I was talking to another guest on the show and she was like, yeah, I think that the thing that motivates me is like whatever my thing that kind of makes me kind of fired up or angry a little bit or that sort of like is a pretty strong driving force. So
yeah.
yeah.
I think that's sort of how I really came to realize that this was a passion was because look, I love food and I can talk about food all day long, but nothing really like gets me in my gut and in my soul more than like trying to tell someone that they like about these fad diets and how ridiculous they're being. Like that is something like I'm like I get way too heated like when that conversation comes up that I was like, okay, this makes sense to be a passion when I like get so passionate about talking about that stuff and
Yeah.
trying to like
Yeah.
debunk it.
Well, I think people need it right now. There's so much information floating around. Like, because I'm over here. I'm like, I've tried out intermittent fasting. I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I should do intermittent fasting, or maybe I should try out a little bit of some version of keto. And it always kind of leads to like a fail out, or it leads to me being like, oh, I feel like garbage, for for a
Yep.
long time. Maybe you lose weight fast, but then you're like the it's just like
Not a
I
long
don't,
term, they're not sustainable.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
sustainable. It's not
No,
sustainable.
everybody wants the quick fix. That's why all these diets seem so appealing, but they're not
Hmm.
sustainable. And ultimately, so many of them are not healthy and they're not good for you. Like, and that's like the bigger thing for me about it is like, you're not, maybe you're trying to do something where you're quickly losing weight for, quick short term, but like you're ultimately like impacting your overall health. And that's the bigger thing. It's like, wouldn't you rather be healthy and lose those 5 pounds a lot slower? And so it's really trying to get back to that feeling to everybody. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, if it's going to be sustainable and if it's going to be right and if it's going to be healthy, it's probably going to be a little bit slower, but that's okay. You're doing it
Yeah.
the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. But the payoff is that it lasts longer and you feel so much
Exactly.
better too, right?
Exactly.
That's no, that is I think there's a lot of people that want to know that that kind of information. Um so I know that everybody was super supportive. Did you ever run into anybody? I always have to ask because I know sometimes whenever you're doing something like this and people see you becoming your happiest version of yourself or whatever it is, did you ever have anybody that kind of gave you any flack about it or anything like that along the way?
I wouldn't say like straight up that there was
Yeah.
anybody who would just like to my face. I don't know if it was me, there's definitely an insecurity of myself in this. Like I have such a perfectionist and like it's a big risk to do this. And, starting a business is not quick money. And it is not, it is growing and it takes a long time. And I think that for me, I'm very hard on myself about it, where like I'm like, it's not successful until it's a huge successful business and everybody knows about it and my books are flying off the shelf and until then I'm like it's not success yet. So I do think that I sometimes overread into people being like, what does she
Yeah.
do all day? Or like, oh, she just started this like little side job, like, and I don't think anybody thinks that.
Hmm.
So I think I would say I'm probably the one who gives myself the most flack. Then I think everybody else is really incredibly supportive. People when they hear about that I left my job and started, I mean, people I think are very impressed that even just taking that leap, which really honestly, like getting the support from so many people, I think helps me move forward and helps me sort of quiet sometimes like my inner critic, which I think is worse
Yeah.
than anything anybody else could say to me.
Yeah. What's your advice, I guess, for people that are needing to practice positive self-talk a little bit more? What's been your experience with navigating that? Because you're right, everybody, I'm my worst critic. I know I think that's everybody right now, which
Yes.
is so unfortunate, but like, it's just the way it's how we're wired, I don't know what it
Oh
is.
yeah. I think for me, a lot of it was like trying to knowing that like I'm not alone in this process, like that this is
Hmm.
how it goes starting a business. So I started listening to the How I Built This podcast. Have you heard
Cool.
that one from
I
Guy?
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really
which is
good.
great. And I think that like what helped me was like hearing these people's stories. They're like, it took 15 years until this little janky business became the multi-million dollar one it was. And learning that like the first 5 years they failed and they restarted. And I think really learning that like this is the process. Like this is
Hmm.
it it takes a long time. You don't have a success overnight. If you have a success overnight, there's something wrong. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really just that like I think every time I get really down on myself, you have to be like, but look how far I've come. Look what I have accomplished, and know that like it's success takes time and perseverance, and to just like keep trying to like remember what I have done and try to focus on like what I have done, and knowing that like I'm not. I think the hardest thing is to think like everyone else must have done this so well and everybody else like because you
Hmm.
obviously compare yourself to people in the industry who have
Sure.
successful businesses and you assume, well, that just happened overnight. And I think like really
No
hearing that like,
way.
no, it didn't. Like they struggled their first however many years too until it really took off. So I think like having that constant reminder kind of helps that inner critic a little.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a reason that I take a new meaning to the cat on the tree, just hang in there.
Yeah.
It's if you hang in for a long enough time, there is some sort of a payoff that can happen. And, if you're consistent, it's all about that, those consistent results happening bit by bit, incremental growth, just tiny growth. It really does add up. And have you met a lot of peers kind of in this world now that you've been out there? Do you have like groups that you talk to and bounce ideas off of and things like that?
Yes. So that actually was super helpful also like through COVID when you're not really being able to get out and meet people is I really started like finding networking groups.
Yeah.
So I joined every networking group I could, and just a lot of it was to get my name out there, but it was also like to find peers who are also going through, starting a business.
Hmm.
And so I came across a couple of really, really helpful ones. One was this group of like all these women-owned businesses that were all, in similar stages, either just starting or maybe a little bit
Yeah.
ahead, and really helpful in that like we would have monthly meetings and they would bring in someone who was specialized in social media or in legal stuff, and finding that group where like again like bouncing ideas off each other, really learning that other people are like the knowing that there's other people who are going through the exact same thing and having the exact same struggles, was also like really just helpful. And that, because when you're doing it on your own and not having someone else going through it with you or doing it with you or talking about the negatives, all you're going to do is be hard on yourself. And like, why am I doing this wrong? Why am I not succeeding? How come I can't figure this out? Like,
Hmm.
why do I do so many social media posts? And then
Yeah. Yeah.
working with this group where like everybody had, same struggles or different struggles, but they had struggles and we could talk about them and help each other out and give each other advice, was really, really helpful.
That is, it's so helpful, especially when you're like, okay, it's so nice even just to realize I'm not alone in this. I'm like pushing through. So as you've done this, I'm sure that whenever you first did it, you're like, it's kind of weird doing something on your own because you can think about it nonstop probably.
Yeah.
But I guess with work-life balance, have you been able to find a good way to sort of be like, hey, I can shut off or I can take a vacation or take a breather, or what's your philosophy around that kind of stuff right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very strongly about work-life balance. I mean, I think it is super important to have a life and spend time with your friends and your family and, enjoy life because otherwise what's the point? And so I definitely am very strong about that, but being my own business, it's never not on my mind. I'm never not thinking about it or thinking about what I should
Yeah.
be doing or trying to snap, quick Instagram posts so that like I'm making sure the business is staying present. And so it's definitely something that's always there. But I'm able to still be present when I'm on vacation. It's not like the whole time or when I'm with my family or with friends, we'll talk about it. People will ask about it. But it's not like I'm constantly like taking pictures or doing things. I think just like being able to be present in work when you're in work, and then excuse me, and then being able to be present when you are, you know, in life, I think is super important, and just really trying to focus on what you're doing, instead of trying to do it all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I, I found that, that's kind of the thing now, right? There's the great resignation going on left and right. And people, that's the hard thing is, even when you're not working, when you get burnt out, it consumes you to the point where you're thinking about it nonstop. It seems like an unsolvable problem. We had another guest on here that mentioned, burnout is maybe not even necessarily when you are just like tired of working, but it's when you're like, this is so out of control to the point where I feel like I can't even grasp what's going on right now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I feel like when for you, there's a couple of things. One, it's like working for yourself. It is driven by this passion, so it feels like that's obviously a source of energy. But then two, I'm sure you have to do practices like, you get to choose what works really well for you with your work-life balance. So then you can kind of make sure that you're feeding yourself, I'll use feeding and
Mhm.
eating analogies since we're doing.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
But I think that's something that's so important to make sure that you're taken care of. So something I was thinking about too, was with what you're doing, everybody's so different. So what was it like? I guess what's your approach to figuring out something that fits well for whoever you're working with, or how do you kind of specialize to the person, or do you specialize to the person?
Yeah, so my whole program, everything I do is specialized to each person because I think that with anything, everybody's unique. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter what we're talking about. It's whether it's nutrition, it's it's fitness, it's marketing, starting a business, any of it, like we all work differently. We all think differently. We all react differently. And therefore, there isn't just going to be one set outline that works for everyone. So I
Totally.
very much try to do everything I do to be very customizable to people. So when I'm working with one-on-one clients, it's I send them, questionnaires to really make the program customized to them. When it's a corporate presentation, I'm like, okay, what is going to be most beneficial for your employees? Do they want to hear about this? They want to hear about that. Like, what can I talk about that's going to be beneficial and really help them? When it's at the school, it's, okay, so what kind of access do these, kids currently have to foods, and what do they need? What point are they in understanding foods and cooking skills? And I really just want it to be, it's also something that everybody, you get something out of it. But I think particularly in the one-on-one, it's so important to make it unique and personalized. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
only way we're really going to get the benefit, is if it's so personal to you. And that's part of also I am, a lot of like support and accountability. I am very big on when I'm working with a client, it's like you can reach out to me at any time. I use this app and I'm like, put type a question in the app and I will get on and I will respond to you, because I
So
think that
cool.
support and that one-on-one really support and accountability, I think really can also continually help people, because again, like I said, it's not a quick fix. It's going to
No,
take some time.
no.
Habits take time to be formed and to change. And so having that support and help and that personalized accountability and program, I think really is the best way to help people.
All right. Well, sign me up. I think you need to be my nutrition coach now.
Great. Let's do it.
That sounds great. Um, so I always love to ask this too. I was curious. So while doing this, obviously there's a lot of different successes, but when did you ever have a point where you're like, oh, I think I've really got something here? Did you ever have that kind of eureka moment?
Um, I think I'm so hard on myself that I don't know if I ever was fully like, yes, this is it. I think though at the same time when I think honestly with the cookbook, when I hit like 100 sales, like, which I know is not a
Wow.
lot on a
No,
book, but like
that's
for someone
100
who has
people.
no idea what they're doing, I was like, oh my God, people are buying this book. Like,
Yeah,
wow, that's amazing. Like, it's not
that
just
is
my friends and
amazing.
family. I don't even know half these people.
Yeah.
Like that was a big moment. And then I think when I got my first client that was not a referral from a friend or a family member, like someone
Mm.
found me on Google and reached out and signed up, that very first person, was, I think, a moment where I was like, oh my God, this can actually work. Like, I'm actually doing this. Like, this isn't just a business for my friends and family. Like, people are actually signing up. Like, and I
Yep.
think that was a big moment too when I realized, like, all right, I did something.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's got to be so thrilling when you're like, I mean, I would be through the roof if I sold 100 cookbooks that I that's so neat. And reaching somebody that's not a family and friend, that's such an indicator of like, oh my gosh, I have something that's like really showing some like tangible results to where even strangers or somebody that I'm not familiar with is reaching out and signing up for it. That's so cool. Um, yeah, I think that's incredible. For you, what do you think is your, because obviously I know I keep talking about, you have a bunch of different things that you do, but what do you think is the favorite part of what you do?
um, I think that's hard because I like a lot of it, but I think the favorite part is honestly like imparting information to people that helps them. Like, I love teaching the cooking classes, but what I really love is when I teach the classes, but I also talk to them about nutrition. And what I love is I'll come back the next week and I'll be like, okay, so who can tell me like what are the benefits of protein? And when I hear the kids say like it builds muscle, like there's something inside of me that's like, oh my God, I just imparted knowledge. Like, it makes me feel so good. In the same vein of like working with one-on-one clients, when I see them making the changes in their diets or in what they're doing based on what I said, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm actually like helping someone.
That's
So I think it's mostly like the imparting some sort of knowledge or information that has been retained, no matter what the topic or the part is, whether it's in the cookbook or a class or at a client. Like that, I think is the big thing for me.
that's real impact.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that will change somebody. It could change somebody's life. It could set somebody up to live 20 more years or something,
Yeah.
you know?
That's the hope.
Yeah, that's really, really incredible. And that's something that I think is so special is at the end of all of it, it's always, I don't know, so important to feel like you are finding something that helps people no matter what you do. So what would you say, I guess, to people that are, because I just love your story so much. You just went out and made it happen for yourself. And, you know, you even, I think what I liked particularly about your story is you had a pretty long career in marketing. And then you were just like driven to, you're like, you know what, I've got to go for this. And, you know, you kind of beat people to the trend because people didn't really start leaving until like 2021 or 2020-ish, you know, you're 2019. So you've got a little, you know, a little age on them for that. But I guess what kind of, you know, what would you maybe say to somebody who's on the cusp of investing in themselves and are a little afraid to take that leap?
I mean, I would say do it. I mean, honestly, like it's worth it. If it is your passion, if it is something that makes you happy, it is worth trying. It is worth doing. And I think for like what helped me really make that leap, and I think for anyone is you can always go pick another career. You can always go back to
Yeah.
what you were doing. You can always make a change. This isn't the only chance you get to make a change. But for your own happiness and for your own passion, it is worth it. Do it, take the leap, and just have faith in yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. You know, and I think people know it, but hearing it from multiple different sources, you know, that might be that little extra push. So somebody might be listening and say, you know what, that was the 14th push that I got that I need to go ahead and do this. So that always gets me so excited. Well, hey, thank you so much for this super insightful conversation. It was an absolute pleasure. I feel like I got to learn a lot from doing this. So thanks for coming on. I guess to close out, I'd love to hear, is there anything that, you know, you want to announce or a place where people can, and also a place where people can kind of locate you online and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So my website is robingoldbergnutrition.com. And that's where you can also find my cookbooks or contact me, find more information about me and my programs. My cookbooks are also sold on Amazon. They're called Hidden Veggies and then Hidden Veggies 2.
I like
So they are
hidden
both on
veggies.
Amazon. Hidden Veggies.
Nice.
It's actually Hidden Veggies recipes even the pickiest eaters will love. But
Ooh.
and then Hidden Veggies 2 Snack Attack.
All right.
So
I can
those are the
remember
two books.
that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So find them on Amazon or on my website, again, robingoldbergnutrition.com. But thank you so much for having me. And this was really a pleasure. And I really hope
Yeah.
everybody got something out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, the pleasure is all mine. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing everything that you do, and everybody, you know, follow Robin, and you know, I'll be sure to share anything that I try out of yours as well. So
Thank you. Yes, please do.
all right.
All
Thanks, Robin.
right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Gem Series, the podcast for anybody dedicated to investing in themselves. If you would like to see the resources mentioned in this episode, learn more about what we are up to at Rocket Level, or come over and join our team, just click on the links below. Until next time, this is Blake Chapman, and remember to be awesome and do awesome things.